We will start with the graveyard, and this week there are no.
I'm telling you, it
Hey.
lies sometimes.
Hey, Abby. Yeah, it does. It does lie sometimes. We have 0 viewers. It says, but this is a lie. We have at least 1 viewer. We will go to the graveyard. Graveyard, nothing has changed. All the teams are the same. Cincinnati and Atlanta were the most recent ones to join the graveyard, and they stay there. Atlanta barely pulled out a win over the New Orleans Saints, also a graveyard team. And then Cincinnati could not pull off the upset over the New England Patriots. And so those 2 teams will stay in the graveyard. Every team will stay in the graveyard for the rest of the season. I think the only worry I had Cincinnati won this weekend and then Joe Burrow comes back Thursday night and they beat the Ravens, then we're kind of getting into a dire situation. Not a dire situation, a scary situation on topic with the graveyard there.
100%.
Of do the Bengals need to come out of the graveyard because they would make sense with Joe Burrow to be potentially part of the power rankings. But with that loss and being 3-8, I'm going to keep them in the graveyard going forward. And now we'll move to the teams left off. And what is the score at halftime for the Monday Night Football game?
It's 10-3.
Okay, well then
We just out of halftime. Panthers have the ball.
Panthers can't even complain. I'll go ahead and predict they don't pull off the win over the San Francisco 49ers in the second half on the road. So give me Carolina to stay off of the teams left off, and then also joining teams left off, and now officially on graveyard watch, 9. And the Minnesota Vikings failed to put up 9 points this weekend, failed to throw for 100 yards, which that is not the first time he's done that this season, which is not good. Something I've complained about with Bryce Young, but 2 elite quarterbacks in college struggling in the NFL, Bryce Young at Alabama and J.J. McCarthy at Michigan, and they joined the teams left off. The Minnesota Vikings do this week after being on the pyramid last week. Now we will go to Tier 6, which is 4 teams and not the full 6. Joining down at Tier 6, dropping 2 tiers fully, are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with their performance against the Los Angeles Rams. And really the last 3 weeks, they have gone from they were the number 1 team. They were top of the pyramid for, I believe, 2 weeks in a row. And now they have fallen all the way to the bottom of the pyramid. Look, Seattle's done the same where they've gone from the bottom to the top. And so teams will move on this pyramid as the weeks go on. Tampa Bay is now down at the bottom at 6-5, joining the 49ers, the Jaguars, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is your Tier 6. For Tier 5, we have 1 movement, and it's Dallas. Dallas has moved up to Tier 5 with their win over Philly, and they will play the Kansas City Chiefs this coming weekend, or not this coming Thanksgiving on Thursday, as they always do. They join the Houston Texans, the Chargers, the Bears, and the Lions. The Lions, I think, proved to me that they are properly power ranked with how that game against the New York Giants went. They could not get a stop defensively, and they did just enough offensively. Had to have some elite plays from Jahmyr Gibbs to survive. Chicago is 6-1. Some are calling them frauds. I think they're properly power rated and have been. They will prove whether or not they're frauds going forward with really tough games against the Packers twice and the Eagles. Chargers run a bye, so you don't move. Dallas, of course, is rejoined. And then Houston was properly power rated last week, which you wouldn't believe, but Houston was one of my best bets. I had them as only 1.5-point underdogs against the Buffalo Bills, and they, of course, covered that and ended up winning that game as well by 3. Houston stays where they're at on Tier 5, and these teams stay where they're at on Tier 5 because I don't know how to move any of these teams above these 4 teams that are here on Tier 4, and that is the Indianapolis Colts, who forced overtime with the Kansas City Chiefs on the road, ended up losing. Green Bay moves up to Tier 4 with their defensive performances. They continue to rise in power rankings. I almost made the argument for them raising to Tier 3. Denver was on a bye. And then I'm going to drop Kansas City in a loss.
In a win.
Or in a win, I should say, yes. But a loss on the pyramid. in my eyes. They covered. Actually, that's a lie. They didn't cover the spread last week. They were, according to the pyramid, 4.5-point favorites. They only win by 3, and so that would be one reason to lead to them dropping. But also, what happened yesterday on Sunday is just not sustainable going forward. And I refuse to believe that they can rattle off 10 straight playoff wins going forward, which is what they're going to need to do to win the Super Bowl. I have them dropping on the power rankings because I think they're right there dead even with Indianapolis. They are the same rating, and so Kansas City would be favored by 2.5 at home because that's how home field advantage works in the NFL. They won by 3. Seems pretty accurate. And that's in a game where they outgained Indianapolis both through the air and on the ground, had 33 first downs to 10. They're going to drop to Tier 4 because I think they proved that they are on the same ranking as the Indianapolis Colts. But they're also dropping because Baltimore is rising to Tier 3. And with their defensive performances that they're putting together, again, I think I brought up this kind of point. This might be the 4th time this year. If the problem right now with your team is that your offense with a 2-time MVP and one of the best running backs in NFL history aren't putting up points, if that's your problem, then I think it's going to work itself out as we go down the weeks. And because of that, I think Baltimore deserves every right to be right here on Tier 3 once again with the way that they're playing defensively. It's, if I'm not mistaken, 5 straight games where the opponent is 20 points or less, which is a really big statement because at the beginning of the year that was not the case with Houston and Buffalo and Kansas City. Excuse me, they have turned it around defensively, and they deserve to jump up to Tier 3. Dropping down to Tier 3 is sadly Abby's Philadelphia Eagles with their performance this weekend. There's only one other team in the NFL with more scoreless halves this year. Any guesses?
The Browns.
The Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
Philly also leads the league in 3-and-out percentage, which is it's a roughly around 44% of their drives are 3-and-out.
Holy Schubert.
They lead the league. The only team that's second to them is the Cleveland Browns at roughly 42% with all their quarterback troubles. Philly has been really bad offensively for half a game and great offensively for the other half. Defensively, it's been hit or miss. Had great weeks and then gave up 24 straight to the Dallas Cowboys. Philly drops down to Tier 3. Buffalo, I'm going to keep where they're at because I got the result that I expected. It was one of my best bets. I don't expect them to give up 10 sacks again. I think they'll regroup and be fine, and that's the best defense in football, and yet they were right there down to the wire in that game, even with Josh Allen turning the ball over. They've got to protect the football. That's the big thing. The 4 losses, Josh Allen has 2 turnovers in each of those 4 games. New England jumps up to Tier 2, joining the Seattle Seahawks. They have 10 wins, so the first team to 10 wins this year. They've been really, really impressive, and I understand a pushback very easily. It's one I've had, is they have not played anybody. That'll work itself out because they play in 3 weeks and 4 weeks, the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens, both those games against 2 of the best quarterbacks in the AFC. They will figure out whether or not they're a true playoff contender going forward. And so that'll work itself out. It's the same thing with Chicago. You can call them fraudulent right now. You can feel that way. It'll work itself out like it is right now with the Indianapolis Colts. It'll work itself out. I do think that they are Tier 2 because they show a winning pedigree. They play really well defensively. Yep. They're the best rush defense in football. Defense wins championships. Mike Vrabel is preaching that. And Drake May is second to Matthew Stafford, who's 30 touchdowns, 2 picks, in MVP voting. Or MVP odds, I should say. He is having a terrific, terrific season. Had a pick 6 on Sunday, but after that responded really, really well. New England's Tier 2. with the Seattle Seahawks, who were only Tier 2 because the team that beat them last week, the Los Angeles Rams, had another great, impressive week, and they stay at Tier 1. And that is the pyramid after Week 12 going into Week 13. Any questions, Jack? I can also talk about some of the spreads coming up this week as well.
Any questions? No, I like the pyramid a good bit. Yeah, I don't really have any big concerns or anything like that. I do want to point out to both Lucy and Abby in the chat. This is show 1 of 2, so just because we don't have much left in this show, I know we're close to leaving the studio, so I hate to break that to y'all. I'm fine with it. I don't see anything bad.
Yep. For reference, going forward this week, a few of the spreads. Now that we're doing spreads with the pyramid, Thanksgiving, I have 2. We have Green Bay, Detroit. Detroit is a 2.5-point favorite. I have Detroit favored by just 1.5 points. Or sorry, half of a point. So a 2-point difference there. The biggest shocker, though, on Thanksgiving, because of this pyramid, I have Dallas as a favorite this weekend. Kansas City's favored by 3. That'll end up being one of my best bets in the next show later this evening. And we will talk about more of those in the best bet segment in terms of spreads. But that is the pyramid for Week 13.